Um, before any other thing, I would like to tell you all that we are recording sessions. So if anyone has any reservation of being recorded, please shut the microphone down and the image too, because it will be recorded. So shall we start now? I would like to welcome you all, and particularly Professor Dignum, whom I would like to thank very much to have accepted our invitation to participate in those INESTEC talks on ethics in research and defense. Professor Dignum is with the Department of Computer Science at the Umeå University in Sweden, where she leads research group on social and ethical AI, and she's also associated with the Faculty of Technology, Policy and Management at the Delft University of Technology. Professor Dignum is actively involved in several international initiatives on policy and strategy guidelines for AI research and applications, being a member of the European Commission High-Level Expert Group on AI, as well as of the IEEE Initiative on Ethics of Autonomous Systems, and various European groups concerned with responsible AI. But without further ado, Professor Dignum, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for the introduction. I see that I probably send you an old version of the bio because I'm no longer connected with the Delft University. But anyway, you guys get what the background is. Let me just start sharing my slides, and as agreed, I will be presenting in English. The slides are in English anyway, but if you want to put any questions in Portuguese is fine as well. I believe you can see my slides.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, good. So AI and what can we do with AI towards responsibility, towards is the AI that we are developing now the most suitable type of paradigm or type of advance towards responsibility, towards sustainability and so on. Those are many of the questions that are being asked not only at the research departments and the research initiatives, but increasingly also by global agencies and institutions around the world that are concerned or working towards a global governance or regulation in one way or another of AI. We cannot ignore, of course, all the advances and capabilities that the recent technologies around AI, and especially the ones since the advance of large language models, of general purpose models or foundational models, depending on how you want to call them. But all these advances are really providing a large and very much contributions to developing science, developing technology, and of course also we hope to make a positive impact in the world. Since recently also we can see that AI and computer science is really taken seriously as science, especially looking at the two Nobel Prizes related to AI that were awarded this year to researchers in AI. Working in Sweden, the Nobel Prizes is something which here is really a very big thing, not only from the scientific perspective, but also as a national pride. On the day that just as a curiosity, on the 10th of December, which is the day in which the Nobel Prizes are given, the ceremony happens to give the Nobel Prize to the awardees, which is a big event in Stockholm. It's broadcasted every year live on TV, and more strangely, from my perspective, they also broadcast live on TV the dinner of the celebration of the Nobel Prize, which is basically a lot of people sitting in the in a monumental building in Stockholm, all having dinner, and people are sitting at home having their own dinners and looking at Nobel Prize people having their own dinners, which is a strange thing. But here in Sweden, the Nobel Prize is really a very big thing. Just as a small apart from the diversion from the presentation. Let me go back to the presentation. So the question we have to ask ourselves is what is AI doing? Is really only positive? Is only really leading to beneficial development for the society? Or should we be somehow concerned about what is AI doing and what we are doing with AI? Just to give small examples of what's happening, and probably many of you also already try out this type of experiments with chatbots, and what I'm going to show is done with either ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion, one which is more geared to develop images. But anyway, so we can ask these systems to give us images of nurses. We can ask these systems to give us images of doctors, of professors, whatever. And maybe not surprisingly, what the systems reproduce is somehow our own stereotypes about professions, about situations, about cultures, about countries. All these stereotypes come back to us. At the same time, we can start using these systems also to be creative, like in this image, in which the prompt that I gave was a Bosch washing machine in the style of Hieronymus Bosch. And then here we can be really amazed maybe by the capacity of a system like this to really understand what is the style of Hieronymus Bosch, and including a washing machine, which is something which neither Hieronymus Bosch ever saw, nor, as far as I know, the Bosch Corporation ever thought about creating this combination. So it's really something which is creative, at least we could think about it as being creative, but at least is unexpected, let's say. So what does this mean? What is it that we are seeing with this type of development? In one end, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what do we want these systems to provide us? Do we want these systems to describe to us the world as it is, with all our stereotypes, all the challenges, all the differences, and the not so nice, if you want, situations? Or do we want AI to be normative and to show to us a world that we would like to have, but it's not the world where we live in, the better world? And if we want AI to show us a better world, who is going to decide what is better? Who is going to set the rules? Who is going to decide that we would appreciate better to have images of doctors which are more inclusive in terms of gender, maybe also in terms of age and so on, the same for the nurses. But who is going to decide what is right or wrong? And what does it mean for society also that we are shaping a better world by using AI, better meaning whatever someone is deciding? On the other side, if AI is creating this type of creative or unexpected images, what does it mean? Who owns this image? Who is the creator of this image? Is me, who will come up with the prompt? Is it Hieronymus Bosch, because it's his style anyway? Is it Stable Diffusion, because they come up with the tools that made it possible for me to prompt this image? Or is maybe the Bosch Corporation, because they are the ones who own the copyright, I suppose, about the washing machine? So who owns it? And is this art? These are the kind of questions that many of us have been asking ourselves and been asked by the media. Is this art? Is this really what we call art? And are we not shouldn't we not be seeing AI as being a tool rather than author? All questions which the most important and the most interesting aspect of it are questions that are not really the questions that we computer scientists or we engineers are in any way able or trained to answer. These are typically not technical questions. They are not questions that are addressed by computer science or by the traditional approach on AI that we have learned to have as a technology or a byproduct, a product of computer science. All these questions are not questions that any of us computer scientists really can have the tools or the capability to address. What we can address is trying to solve, to create solutions to the errors and the problems that we see in the answers that these systems give, from a perspective of the hallucinations that the systems give, from the inherent difficulty of this type of systems to just stop and say, I don't know. All of us that have interacted with tools like ChatGPT know that the system will go forever trying to give you yet another answer and getting into more and more difficult directions just because the system doesn't really know how to say no. So we from computer science have been dealing with or trying to find ways to deal with that situation, either by addressing the hallucination or by addressing the difficulty of the systems to deal with the outliers, to situations which don't really appear on the data that they have, like the question in the image in the middle, which the prompt was African doctor treating underfed white children. Somehow the systems are not able to understand the real meaning of the question and keep repeating again and again. One of the solutions that we found as computer scientists is what has been known as reinforcement learning by human factors. And there is somehow creating filters which will stop the system from doing something which we would expect to be wrong or to be wrongly understood. From, for example, the case of the jokes here, in which if you ask ChatGPT in this case to tell you a joke about a woman, the system will give you a sermon why that was not appropriate. The same in the case you ask jokes about fat people, but seemingly there is no rules, or the rules are not really applied in the case that you ask a joke about a tall man. So we do try from a computer science and from a technical perspective to address these issues, but still the questions are we not keeping reinforcement the bias? What are the kind of reasoning and the kind of accountability that we need to put in these solutions to the problems that are appearing from the tools that we develop? Are these type of solutions suitable or susceptible to be manipulated and to be gamed about? Is there a misalignment of values? Again, the question, who says what is right or what is wrong? Who is saying that jokes about fat people are inappropriate and jokes about tall people are appropriate? So all these type of things, and combined with the fact that to keep this type of filtering, we are seeing also increased exploitation of labor under very bad labor conditions, and especially in parts of the world in which there is not so much care for the labor conditions. So with our solutions, we also are generating possibly more other types of problems. Again, the type of problems that we as computer scientists probably don't really know how to address. What we do, all of us are led to believe, and that is the narrative that has been leading the development, is that more is better. More data will lead to better systems, better and stronger and bigger algorithms are going to lead to better applications, and all of that will require more computing power. And I would like to question this type of approach, that more is better. What does happen when we get more data? We get an increasingly distorted vision or perspective on the world. And as we all know, AI doesn't interact with the world directly, but only through the data that is available to it. If the data gives a distorted vision of the world, then by necessity, the systems will have a distorted vision of the world, if we want to call it a vision. Also, worrying from this image or from this slide is the fact that 50% of the data sets that are being used somehow in the development, training, and deployment of AI are connected to only 12 institutions. Of these 12, only one is in Europe and 10 are in North America. If we talk about the algorithms and the bigger and the better algorithms, the better the solutions we are solving, then we need to realize that the systems that we build are based on this rational paradigm, the logical rational paradigm, that basically what I mean by this is that we build systems to optimize towards a certain function. We, given the preferences, the data that the system is available, the decision that the system takes is an optimizing system. It will optimize its actions or its decisions or its results towards whatever preference is given. And this is kind of ingrained in the way that we develop these systems, the way we teach these systems, and the way the systems are being used. At the same time, we people are not really logical, rational in this sense of optimizing systems, but we are able and by necessity and by capability to deal with incompatible goals, inconsistent beliefs, different motives. Our actions are not just about optimizing something, but are really about influenced by the context in many different ways. And also we tend not to be able to maximize forever and take more effort to get yet a little bit more maximizing optimum, but very often in our case, good is good enough. At the same time, this type of stereotypes that we associate with the better AI systems towards rationality and autonomy and efficiency and optimization are seen and have been studied to be much more aligned with the preferences and the principles that influence and that are seen as positive in the global north cultures and not necessarily also aligned with the cultures of the global majority. So what we are trying to do, in a sense, by becoming more, building systems that are bigger and bigger and more following this rational approach, is trying to solve complex human and societal problems only by application of AI, while what I think it would be the most relevant is to try to combine the rationality of the AI systems in some form, some hybrid form with the capabilities of human intelligence. Finally, the computation, and this is not new to none of you, I believe, by going towards more and more bigger and bigger and stronger and bigger infrastructures for maintaining the data and for doing the calculations, so the computer centers and the data centers. We are competing with ourselves for resources that are needed also for human well-being, in terms of energy, in terms of usage of water, in terms of investment, but also in terms of how our societal development goals, the SDGs, are not necessarily only being benefiting by the development of AI, but in many cases are also being prejudiced and limited by exactly the use of AI. So we have to make choices, and there are trade-offs to be made in terms of the computational costs of the solutions that we are developing. At the same time, and it's something which is, especially in the last weeks and during this year, which has been too many elections, we also see a direct relation between how AI is applied, and especially how AI is applied by large tech companies in some areas of the world. There is a direct relation between this application and maybe the erosion of the democratic oversight and democratic process. So this is also something, again, that is not with the realm of what we computer scientists can do, but it's something which really needs to be addressed, and that's been addressed by colleagues and scientists from many other disciplines. Which probably leads us to the realization that AI is not really intelligent, at least is differently intelligent than we are. AI is also not as artificial as we expected, because it really depends on the natural resources that we also depend on. And maybe also more important to remind ourselves is that by developing systems that are able to manipulate language at a level that seems to be similar to human level doesn't really give us a proxy for intelligence. The fact that they manipulate language doesn't mean that these systems are intelligent in the same way that we are. So then we go back to the question of responsibility. What we are doing, what these systems are doing, the impact that these systems are creating in our lives is our responsibility. AI doesn't happen in a vacuum. AI doesn't happen to us. We make AI systems happen and exist. So we are also responsible for what these systems do. The question is, of course, can we be responsible given all the complexity in which we are generating with the AI systems? The first thing, and it's repeating part of what I have said, we really need to move behind a technological approach or answer to the issues of responsibility, but we really need to move behind the technological solutions to really embrace a much more multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approach to this type of issues. Like I just said, AI doesn't happen to us, and because we designed these systems, we also are making the choices on how we build the systems. Is the choice to build bigger and bigger systems using more and more natural resources and needing more and more data the direction to go? Or should we try to go in another direction? Who is going to decide which kind of values are we going to consider in this question, and how are we going to prioritize between these values? Like I also already said, there is not a technology fix to all the potential ill effects or problems generated by AI or by any other technology. And so when we talk about ethics or we talk about regulation and governance, we are not talking about only the technical systems, but mostly about the social technical environment in which these systems are developed. The narrative that AI happens to us, which is kind of equivalent to believe that AI is something like the weather. We don't really know how to control the weather. The only thing we can do is to control its effects, is a narrative that is very powerful and very much dominated by the interests of the big tech, but it's a narrative that it's false. AI doesn't happen. We make it happen. And because we make it happen, we have choices, and like any other design is political, and therefore we need to address the design of AI systems in the same way that we address any other political design. So the question, because we build AI, the question is not what is AI, which is eternal discussion with policymakers and with developers. In general, the question we need to answer is, what do we want AI to be? We are building these systems. We have the power to decide on what we want. Do we want AI to be human-like? Firstly, why is that a necessary characteristic of AI systems? And more importantly, what does it mean? There is no average human. Do we want AI to be human-like, like Einstein, like a baby? Like me, like you, who is the person or the human that we are comparing AI with, and why do we need to do that? The alternative, which is put often, is the alternative of the tool. We want AI to be a tool, but even in this case, we need to ask ourselves, is a tool for what? And who is going to benefit from this tool? I'm left-handed. I cannot use a scissors as any right-handed people can use. So even a simple tool like a scissors comes with benefits and problems for some. Benefits for many and problems for some. The other question we need to ask is, going a bit back to the origins of AI, in which the idea was to build artificial models of intelligence to help us understand what is intelligence. So in a sense, a simulation of intelligence. What we are seeing nowadays are systems that have a very active and very real intervention in the world. So do we want AI to be a simulation, or do we want AI to be an active actor in the world? And if that is the case, how are we going? Is the tools that we have to design simulations the most suitable tools for implementing real actors in the world? And finally, the one which I already discussed before, do we want AI to be normative, or do we want AI to be descriptive? Do we want AI to do as we do, to be as the world is, or do we want AI to provide us a better world? And if that is the case, who is going to decide what is better? We also need to think about what kind of decisions we would like these systems to take to benefit us as a group, or to benefit each one of us individually. We also know that not always what is ethical is also socially accepted or even legally allowed. And in this space, we have learned as humans to navigate this space. But if we are building systems in one point in this space, we need to be aware that it might be not the same reality in every culture, in every space, in every time. So we need to also understand the consequences of positioning our systems somewhere in this very complex moral space. So that's when it gets to governance, and I can tell a lot about governance, but the easy reason about governance is the same one which applies to any other technology. If we don't have rules, we cannot really trust technology. We don't trust cars without brakes. We don't trust cars without seat belts. We don't trust medicine without trials and tests about how those things work. We don't trust airplanes without navigation and aeronautic rules. We need rules to really be able to trust the technology that we are going to use. The idea that we are using a car without brakes, going in the road without traffic signs, being driven by someone without a driver's license, is not an image that any one of us would like to live. And that is, in a sense, the situation that we are living in the world of AI. And that is the world in which all these principles and guidelines come up. And these ones are the principles and guidelines which have been developed by many organizations, many countries, many bigger or smaller public and private organizations, from the United Nations, which is one of the last ones entering this space, to any small sectoral association or country. Everybody has come up with principles and guidelines, which is good because it shows that there is awareness and a need for this type of awareness. It is also good that they are not so different from each other. None of these principles and guidelines is advocating for irresponsible or unethical AI. That's at least something we can trust on, we can be confident on. They all more or less talk about the same things, about transparency, about fairness, about diversity, about human rights, which is great because at least, like I say, we are all agreeing. In other hand, it's all described at such a high level of abstraction that for a developer to know what to do with this type of things is quite challenging. You can say we want our systems to align with human rights, but if I build my system, what do I have to do to include in the system to know that it's aligned with human rights? And maybe even harder, how I'm going to verify or validate that my system is indeed aligned with the human rights? Those are all questions that we need also to address. And at this moment, I think that the time to come up with principles and guidelines is not anymore the important thing. What we really need to move on is to build the tools and the frameworks that help us transform these principles and guidelines into suitable development tools. There is a lot of way to do governance. That it's not governance or the regulation even is not just about creating laws and creating legislation like the AI Act here in Europe. And even in legislation, there are many options to decide how legislation should be described and how it should be implemented. But if you talk about regulation or governance, we need to think also about doing work around standards. Standards are not law, are more like they are not mandatory to follow, but they do help by limiting the liability and helping demonstrating the due diligence of those that use them, and moreover often provide some user or friendly, easy way to integrate systems and products. But governance also includes considering and redesigning our development process, our organizational process, our management functions and process. It also includes thinking about what are the tools and frameworks that we need to monitor and assess all what is coming under the umbrella of AI. And all of this, of course, requires education and training, and requires multidisciplinary and open education and training, by which our technologists are also trained on the issues of the humanities and the social science, the ethics, the legal aspects, the societal implications. And at the same time, our people working in humanities and social science need also to be trained on the technical capabilities of what AI systems can and cannot do. Especially maybe about what AI cannot do, because that's what people forget. So how can we be responsible? If we look at what's happening, we are all focusing very much on what I would call the tip of the iceberg, the chatbots, the decision tools, the recommender, all the systems that we are using in one way or another. We forget somehow that these systems are built over a very complex stack of technological development. And all these layers are in this picture designed in a very neat way. At the same time, what we see is that big tech is all over this stack. There is not really a well-defined and well-understanding interfaces between the different layers of the stack. So in a sense, anything goes. In other technologies and in other industries, there are clear rules about what can be done in which layer of the stack, and how can you transverse from one to another. Nothing of that exists in AI. So in a sense, what we get is not anymore this very nice stack of nice colors, but is playing with these colors like we play with plasticine until we get a blurb which has no shape, no color anymore. And now we are trying to regulate this blurb. And that is, in a sense, the reality at this moment. All these governance efforts, all these legislation efforts that are appearing are regulating the tip of the iceberg without having not control about what is below in the iceberg, and not even understanding that there is a whole iceberg below the tools that we are using. So we need to move, and especially to make sure that we keep our democracies and our well-being of the world in a way that is what most of us would like to have. We need to move towards a new paradigm. A paradigm in which we realize that AI is not universal solutions. There are limitations on what AI can or cannot do. So the first question anyone should start by is by answering what has been called in the responsible AI field the question zero, which is it AI the best option that we have for whatever problem we are addressing, or there are other types of solutions which would be more suitable in this case? And because of the hype, what we see is that everybody thinks that AI is the solution for anything and everything, and that only potentially generates more societal problems than what we are trying to solve. We also need to address the inherent risks of bias and discrimination, which are inherent from the way that the current type of systems are built. we need to go beyond the disciplines and include different actors, not only the technologists, and also need to work on developing the technical standards that will enable us to address the complexity of the environment in which AI is being developed and used in a way that it's transparent, is verifiable, and is sustainable. So basically what it would mean is to go towards a more computational approach. No more Play-Doh, no more plasticine, but maybe a more Lego-like approach. Of course, Lego has limitations, but in a sense will support the principles of sustainability, transparency, control, and so on, because then we will know what are the blocks and how can we put these blocks together, who can develop what blocks, what kind of interfaces are there besides the blocks, and so on. Such an approach is a proposal, is something which has been discussed at many different levels. It is one of the proposals, but at the end of the day, like I say, what is important is to recognize that there are tensions between technical and ethical aspects. There are tensions between the ethical principles themselves. And in a sense, we need to develop a different way to address the use and the responsibility for the use within the organizations. Because at the end of the day, all is a choice. Using AI or not is a choice. But the moment that we choose for AI, responsible AI, is not a choice. It is also not that innovation is contrary or governance is against innovation, but really all the efforts around governance, around regulation are and should be seen as stepping stones for the innovation, is really providing the tools and the capabilities to build trust, to provide the needed drive for transformation of the field in a way that we can really have the transparency, the inclusion, the diversity, the fairness, the sustainability that we all talk about. Thank you. And I think that we have now time for questions.
Thank you very much, Regina, for your extremely interesting talk. It was really enlightening. And now I open if someone wants to start by asking questions or making comments.
Like I said, questions in Portuguese are fine as well.
Olímpio.
Okay. Thank you, Virginia, for the great talk. Many questions. One of them is more related with approach of the European Union. So I know you've been involved in the committee of experts that were advising the European Union before the AI Act was built. But so what's your opinion about this, the AI Act in particular as a regulatory act? In terms of its foundation, so it is inspired in the ethical principles that were proposed by the HLAG, but at the same time it is very operational. So it is very directed to application and not so much to development. So, for example, it doesn't restrict any kind of development, like it happens, for example, with genetics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question, thank you. Indeed, I was part of the high-level expert group that came up with the guidelines for trustworthy AI, which were published a couple of years ago. That was at the starting point of the AI Act. I was not really directly involved in any way with the AI Act, but what you observe is exactly correct. It is a very operational, aims to be a very operational piece of legislation, but like I just described in the slide with the Play-Doh, it somehow ignores all the complexity of development of these systems and focus a bit too much, in my opinion, on the tip of the iceberg, which is the applications that we use. But of course, if we don't really have legislation that is strong enough to look at the way that these things are developed and when it tries to address the consequences of the applications, it it becomes difficult, I think. And I think that we will be seeing that in the coming months and the coming years, as we are going to try to start implementing and creating the operationalization for the AI Act. But having said that, I think that the main and the most important contribution of the AI Act is that it's there, that there is a region in the world which took the courage to come up with legislation for such a complex technology, or more than a technology, reality that as complex as what AI is at this moment. As in the same way that we all understand that our technological solutions are never correct at first, and we all expect that we will have to adapt our solutions and as we implement them, as we try them, as we use them, we need to take a similar approach to law. Law, I think, at least as far as I know, since the 10 commandments that Moses got, is not written in stone, is also something which we need to be able to test, to change, to adapt. And I think that we need also to take the courage to realize that we will need to adapt parts or significant parts of the AI Act as we move forward to implement it.
Thank you.
Pedro Benedito.
Yes, thanks a lot for the talk. It was very interesting. And so my question is quite simple. Do you know of any standard that has come out of China, like the ones that you showed us?
There is work done in standards. There is also legislation done in China. The issues with China, of course, is that the legislation that they are developing, the standards that they are developing, are very much geared to the Chinese situation. They are very much aligned with the Chinese culture, I think, but especially with the political situation in China. And that makes that the approaches and the solutions that they bring forward are not necessarily the solutions or the approaches that we would be able or wanting to use within Europe or the United States. However, China is actively working on standards and on legislation and on strategies for their own implementation of AI. Whether we like their implementations or not is another issue. But at the global level and at the United Nations level, China was one of the countries involved in the development of the Governing AI for Humanity report that I referred briefly in one of the slides. And they were, if I may say so, very productive partners and very relevant discussions existed within the group, also with the participation of our Chinese colleagues.
So I have sorry, it's a follow-up question. So do you, so what do you mean when you say we all the time? I was thinking of humanity, and now I see that we is actually not, sometimes it's we, the West, sometimes it's, so.
It's a very good point, and I should be more careful. Indeed, when I talk about we, maybe I should say I, because it's kind of what I'm discussing myself. But so when I talk about the global principles for AI, I'm referring to the work being done by United Nations agencies, by United Nations themselves, but also by the UNESCO, the UNICEF, the ITU, and all the other agencies which are working in a global way, and including as much all the difference of the world as possible, which is the case with for instance, the UNESCO principles are really global. But most times when I talk about we, I think I'm referring to us, the researchers and the developers of this type of systems.
Okay,
but it's a difficult and a tricky thing to use. I should be much more careful. There are many different we's in this question. And one of the questions, of course, is who is we? And it's a very important question.
Thank you.
Vasco.
Uh, Hi, Virginia. Thank you so much for your enlightening talk. So I have here only a couple of simple questions. One relates more with with this open talks main subject. And I noticed that in your explanations around the governance and the possibilities for governance, you included there a specific mention on how to avoid wars race around the AI. So how my question is only how optimistic you are regarding this subject and which kind of instruments at the multilateral level, for example, given we discussed here the UNESCO and the UN intervention here, could play in this governance model. My second question is regards research, and so it's more related to the role that we as academia, so now is we academia may have in this conversation, and how can we better influence responsible AI governance models.
Thank you for both questions. So when we talk about the AI race or the arms race in AI, people tend to talk about two different things. One is the application of AI in warfare, and that one is not one which I don't know enough about it to be daring to talk too much about we all know how AI is influencing warfare, but that's not usually what is meant by the arms race in AI, and that is more kind of the domination of the world by dominating the main AI developments. It tends to be understood as a race between China and the United States. At least in the United States, it is seen as a race between the United States and China. I'm not really sure if the Chinese see it as well in this type of race. My point with trying to avoid this race is that by focusing too much on a race, we are missing many things. First, a race as an endpoint, a point in which we can decide who won or who lost. We don't really have an endpoint to develop technology, and the next developments in AI might change the whole situation completely. So we shouldn't really be looking at a race because we don't have an endpoint. Also, a race usually implies that we are all going in the same direction, and if anything we need at this moment is
quiserem, eu posso partilhar com é uma
take a more explorative approach to identify alternatives for the current paradigms, like what I tried to describe in this talk. So I think that the race gives the idea of the endpoint and the idea of the one direction, which are both of them not beneficial for the development and for the innovation in the field. Concerning your second question, which was about the role of the international agencies. In one end, if I'm very honest, and this is my opinion, and whatever I'm saying is only on my own opinion, I'm not speaking on the behalf of any organization whatsoever. But in a sense, I see that international organizations like the United Nations or the UNESCO see the opportunity of taking AI as a way to reclaim a position of authority in the complex geopolitical world in which we are. We all see that unfortunately the United Nations seem to be not able to address the geopolitical conflicts that we see at the moment. So in a sense, AI would give these agencies the opportunity to reclaim this globality of what they are doing. Whether this is going to be achieved or not, it's another thing, but we can, and then about what we as scientists can do, we as researchers, we tend to be, I think, maybe too comfortable in our own corners, dealing with our own problems of financing our research, of dealing with our teaching and our research, our students and so on. And we are not often able to step out of our own routines and contribute enough to our voice to the discussions that are there, which means that then the discussions are dominated in one end by the big tech, because they have enough space and voices, and they make as much noise as they want. They will, it's not that they are not well informed about what can or cannot do, but they have very vested interests on showing the world an image of AI that benefits their own interests. So that's one side. The other ones who are getting into this discussion are the politicians and the media, and most of them are first very recently came to the podium, and secondly are usually very badly informed in what they are talking about. So there is really a need for us that are in the field, which understand what AI can, but mostly we understand what AI cannot do, to really bring our balance, a voice to balance this two extremes of the ones who talk about it and don't understand it, and the ones who talk about it and want to push the discussion to what benefits them. So an independent voice, as what we can bring as researchers, is extremely needed at the moment. Takes a lot of our time, but we need more of us to do it.
Alípio, tinhas pedido?
Yes. So, well, another question about the sovereignty and of the European Union in particular. So, as we know, many of the contributions come from the United States. So they say the United States innovates and the European Union regulates. What do you think can be done for mitigating this situation? Because, well, one possibility is to be more protectionist, and it's something that it has two sides, and we don't like it so much. But it's true that in Europe we need to have some autonomy, some capability of having our own technologies, but it seems very hard to implement in this globalized world.
Yes. So sovereignty is a very important one, and at this moment, no one is sovereign. Not even the United States as a country; they are not sovereign. They are as much hostage of the big tech as anyone else in the world. So democracies and states are not really sovereign in the world of AI. The only ones who determine what we are doing at this moment are the big tech. And that is a very concerned issue. And one of the books I showed from the tech coup, I really advise you to look at it, because it really describes, and it's even more relevant. It came out before Trump won the elections, but it's, if anything, even more relevant now in the situation we are living at the moment. So sovereignty is important. In Europe, we are, and we are not developed. So if we look at the business to business or the research arena, we are developing as many solutions, and as at least we do have something to say. Where we have been behind, and we have been behind since the introduction of the internet, is very much on the business to consumer, on the applications that consumers use, from the Google searches and the browsers of this world to nowadays the ChatGPTs and all the other tools like that. We really have nothing to offer in that field. What we are usually very good at is to integrate different perspectives to really address the issues from a much more participatory and at the same time more distributed way. And that's why I think that this idea of a more compositional paradigm to develop AI, instead of making the bigger than bigger systems, looking how can we develop systems that are distributed, that are compositional, that are modular, that include different, that are heterogeneous, like including different technologies, different approaches, different ways to do things. If I think that we could really move into this direction as a viable alternative and a much more sustainable alternative to the current beliefs of the big tech that the only way forward is to put more data and more computational power and more infrastructure together. There is a lot of discussions at this moment about the plateauing of the capabilities of LLMs and the foundational models. So I think that at this moment is exactly the moment to try and to come up with alternatives.
Anna, you asked to ask a question, but I would like to tell you that Virginia has another meeting at 6, so we have just a couple of minutes to go.
For me, it's 7, but I have a meeting at 7, indeed.
Yes, you have.
Anna, go ahead.
We still have
Virginia,
hour.
I've been lucky enough to listen to you speak 3 times this week.
Okay, yes, I have been repeating too much. I've been too much in Porto this week.
It was
equally or not, yeah.
I learned a lot. And in your talk at Casa da Música, you explained a little bit about Responsible AI Act and how some of the frameworks and best practice people. Let me reframe that. I've been working in industry until 5 months ago. I was a global chief of data science of a leading multinational HR company. And as we know, HR is high risk. And the appetite for responsible AI was very big within data scientists and not so big for the CTO or other organizations, especially budget holders. Data silos everywhere. They wouldn't even. It was even hard for companies to be able to implement GDPR and implement the right to be forgotten for users to be forgotten. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. I also took things to production in SageMaker and Databricks, and I tried to use model registry and record the KPIs of success of my model so that they can become auditable. And it was so hard to do. It was really a struggle. As you were saying, we need to embed these things in the technology and make it easier. So how do we? I can tell you, if we leave it up to business owners, they may or may not, implement responsibly. I feel that they're more thinking it's let's capture the risk and say we accept the risk like we do with all the other risks. So
that's a way to go, and indeed a lot of businesses are capitalizing the risk and counting it as a loss in their finance sheets. But in another hand, I think that the best way to bring it into the discussion at business for business is at the idea of the business differentiation. Nowadays, if you go to the supermarket, you get 50 different types of eggs, from free-range eggs to biological eggs to eggs of happy chickens to eggs I don't know what. There are a huge diversity in the type of offerings that we have in the eggs or in the, I don't know, the mushrooms or the milk or whatever kind of things that you buy in the supermarket. And though all of those are viable and important business alternatives. So if you invest on the free-range eggs, maybe the eggs that you are producing are a bit more expensive than the ones which would be done in a chicken battery factory. But there is a business and there is a market for this type of different business alternatives. We don't really are looking enough in AI to the differentiation in terms of the offerings that business are giving. Mostly what motivate them is the quick and dirty profit. And I think that the narrative here needs to be one much more of providing them the idea that there is an alternative and that they can provide the free-range eggs of AI or the green coffee of AI or whatever else, in which there will be also from the perspective of the pool. We cannot choose. The only things we have are the ones which are given to us at this moment. But if there are alternatives and if there are offerings which are more aligned with some principles, that makes both a business case and a case for the consumers as well.
Virginia, I think I wouldn't like to delay your other appointment. It wasn't, I'm sure there were a lot more questions. I myself have some others, but will be left for another occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The alternative is to follow up the questions on email or on Blue Sky or on LinkedIn. I tend to answer those things. So if you have more questions, just follow me up somewhere.
It was really,
thank you very much for the opportunity.
It was really, really good. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, Virginia.
Bye.